Hi, it's Dr. Greg Jantz. Here we are. And let me just say, this is a difficult topic. Healing from betrayal. We're going to go into detail. We're going to go through the steps that it requires. And betrayal, there is recovery, so more to come.
Dr. Gregory Jantz is a best-selling author of over 45 books and the founder of the Center A Place of Hope, voted a top 10 center for depression treatment in the U.S. As the pioneer of whole person care, Dr. Jantz is known as the messenger of hope. Now the nation's expert on anxiety, depression, substance abuse, relationships, trauma, and PTSD, here is Dr. Gregory Jantz.
Hi, Dr. Greg Jantz here, founder of the Center A Place of Hope. Over 40 years. Yeah, I can still say that with passion. And I am so grateful as a mental health professional to be able to share on these topics. And one we're going to talk about actually is one of my 45 books, Rebuilding Trust After Betrayal. Rebuilding trust. Betrayal. Betrayal is just a plain difficult word. If you've been on the receiving end and you've been a victim of betrayal, you know this. You know that betrayal is an emotion that is difficult to even describe. It's a depth of pain. It's a depth of trauma that can be so overwhelming that we feel like. In fact, I had a person once say, if I really dealt with the pain of the betrayal, I would lose my mind. I mean, that's the degree that this can feel. So betrayal comes in different forms. Obviously, fundamentally, it's a broken trust. You're left feeling at times consumed by guilt. I wrote down the word shame. You feel that there's something terribly wrong with you if you were betrayed. And then you can feel a lot of hopelessness. If I was betrayed, now let's say betrayal in a relationship that was a marriage or a close friendship, but let's take a marriage. There was infidelity, there was a broken trust, there was an affair, and besides the devastation and the shock of that, it puts you in a place where you can enter into, despair and depression and wonder what was wrong with me. Why would the other person even do this? And the self-doubt. You just keep recycling a lot of anger, rage. There's a lot of emotions that get recycled. Number one, I just want to get right to this. Well, number one is betrayal is pain that's hard to put into words. You know if you've had it, because it's a mix of emotions. There's the emotion of shock, anger, despair, a deep, at times, shame, bitterness, resentment. I mean, take every negative emotion and pack it into the word betrayal, and that's what you feel. You don't have freedom yet. You have deep pain. But number one, what do we have to do? Well, the biggest trap really is not forgiving yourself. Okay, but if you were betrayed, okay, there is a step before we get to forgiveness of the other person, but there's a forgiveness of self. And what I mean by that is maybe if you fell into self-loathing, you feel like there was this mistake or this what happened to you defined you. It doesn't, but it feels that way. If you were the one who did the betraying, you may feel like you're irredeemable. You're ruined. Interesting emotions when a person who did the betrayal, once there's a realization of the degree of pain that created, and then ultimately creates for you, both people, the victim and the betrayer, both are going to be cycling into, interestingly, similar emotions. All right. Well, we do need to understand that our actions, behaviors don't define us. We can make we can make huge mistakes. Now, if you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship, and there's been a series of affairs and betrayals, and we've really entered into something else, addiction, sexual addiction, something that is in your life that you keep recycling, that's not a mistake. That's a pattern of compulsions and addiction that has taken charge in your life, and that needs to be addressed. All right. And so sometimes we have to get to the root of what's really going on with betrayal. Let me mention, as we look at forgiveness of self, it's how I dealt with when I was betrayed. It's what did I do? Sometimes we turn to, if we were betrayed, we want to know that we have value, and we may move into if it's a sexual betrayal, into a pattern of promiscuous behavior where we are repeating patterns because we're looking for validation. Okay, like, well, what was wrong with me? So times self-forgiveness and dealing with what was our response, super important. I think transparency, which means honesty, it's got to be a key. I think most of us who've been on the receiving end of betrayal, we need somebody, I'm biased, I think we need a professional who's skilled to help us walk through this. What does this look like? What do I have to do to recover? What do I have to do in making decisions in relationships? And whether it's a close friend, where you were betrayed in some sense, injured deeply, a family member, or a spouse. It's usually one of those three. The word victimization comes to mind, but I can't live as a victim. Maybe I was victimized, but I will not be a victim. And so I need to be careful that I'm not re-victimizing myself by behaviors, about even turning and abusing others if I was a victim of abuse and betrayal. The word I haven't used yet, but it's a descriptive, is the word trauma. I've been deeply traumatized. And that trauma, because of the pain, can cause me then to engage in behaviors that are ultimately self-destructive, usually addictive patterns. It's easy if I've been victimized and I'm on the receiving end of betrayal. People turn to alcohol, they turn to food. They're looking for something to change how they feel. Okay, so why does a person betray another person? I get just a few thoughts here in my little. By the way, it's little because if you're suffering with betrayal and all those emotions, you need simple information to help you walk through it. You don't need small print and 2,000 pages. That's why I made this small. Okay. Why do people betray others? I just want to share it because this is in the book. Unmet emotional needs that they begin to act out. Unmet sexual needs they begin to act out. They also may be, this is my little list, a lack of commitment to integrity. And they probably don't have integrity in other areas of their life. Finances, they may have a lot of deception and lying. So there's a lack of commitment to integrity. Could have, I wrote down here, unhealed wounds from childhood. Childhood trauma can set up a pattern where we can be, if not addressed, we can set ourselves up to betray others. We just repeat patterns. We also know that shame, a deep sense of I'm defective, and so I end up re-injuring other people because of that. All right, there is something called personality disorders. I have a small section on that in here. Personality disorders, narcissistic personality, where it's not just selfishness, it's deeply in the core of who the person is. And their personality I'll use the word faulty. It's faulty adaptation. It's faulty. And their sense of ego, their sense of I'm right, you're wrong, it's all about me, it's ultimately about power and control. But this is important to understand. Narcissistic personality is prone to act out in betraying ways because it doesn't matter. They're a narcissistic personality, and there's always a reason or excuse. It's okay in their personality disorder. All right. A lot of faulty just ways we've learned: being passive aggressive, lack of impulse control, like I'm always constantly acting out impulsively. Maybe it's spending, behavioral acting out, sexual acting out. I just don't have good impulse control. All right. Rebuilding trust after betrayal. Now, this is difficult in that we may feel ruined that we can never, ever be in another relationship. We can never trust anybody else in a relationship, and we can feel like we're ruined and I'm never, ever going to be in another relationship. You isolate, you become that hermit, and sure enough, you live a miserable life because betrayal caused me to cut myself off from others because others aren't trustworthy. And then I really do live a disconnected social life that has caused great misery in essence. So, all right. There is something called rebuilding trust. Let me mention that. If I've been in a betraying situation, there are times when a person who injured you is absolutely sincere and committed, and they will say things like, I'll do anything. Well, it's kind of a wait and see. Will they? They'll do anything to rebuild trust. You'll see them. They'll go into counseling. They'll come to a place like the center, a place of hope, and they're going to find out whatever is wrong with them that needs to be worked on. And you see this level of commitment, and they are willing to wait and work and take responsibility is a key. As they do that, over time, they're willing to kind of re-nurture a relationship, re-nurture trust. You see it not in their words, you see it in their behavior. So I just want to mention there are people, because of their own injury and pain, betray another person, and then they do get help. And it ends up healing and restorative. I mean, it takes time. This is not instant. A healing and restorative relationship where we really do have a situation where a person has sought healing and they want to be an instrument of healing to the one they hurt. Okay. And then there's people who just continue a pattern of betrayal and hurting others. And sometimes when they're caught, they become even more undercover, even more deceptive, and continue those behaviors, and they don't change. Okay, here's a key. A person who has betrayed another person is willing to be accountable. In our substance use program, we do urine analysis to see if a person's telling the truth. No, I have not drank. Okay, and it's called random. You never know when it's your turn to provide a sample. Early on in treatment, people don't want to be accountable. They don't want, not at all. But as time goes along, and they're being honest, and they're growing, and accountability is then okay. If your turn comes up for a urine sample, you're growing, you're being honest, you say, okay, no, I understand. And you do it because you don't have fear of hiding and you're no longer being deceptive. All right. So we're willing to be accountable. We're willing to seek forgiveness and allow the time for forgiveness to be a process, not a one-time event. If you betrayed somebody and you realize what you've done, you go and you ask for forgiveness. Generally, we don't want to do that too soon, and we want to make sure that we are putting things in order in our life. And asking forgiveness, yeah, ultimately super important. But one of the things you got to do is allow another person who's been wounded. They're going to have so much hurt and anger, and you have to receive the natural consequence of your behavior and be willing to be totally honest in order even to begin to plant the first seed of trust or retrusting. And then we start rebuilding, and we're talking rebuilding trust is a year plus. And that's why we have to be committed to personal growth, accountability, treatment, and we have to be making changes in our life that last. We're rebuilding in our life with our faith. We're rebuilding spiritually. I'm suggesting that's important. And we're rebuilding in whatever trauma it was in our life that caused us to act out. We're rebuilding and being honest at a level that maybe we've not ever been. And I'll tell you, that's refreshing, that's clean, and it's ultimately it's exciting to know that, yeah, life may be full of some challenges, but I'm being honest and I feel clean, and I can keep growing then. I cannot grow in my life if I'm being deceptive and I'm still hiding things. All right. Betrayal causes great, great pain. And I think both the person receiving it as well as the person who did the betraying both need to have help. And yeah, if it's in a relationship and marriage, certainly marriage counseling. But there's one-on-one. What we see works best is a person who's either been injured, victimized, they're coming and getting help, and there's an enormous amount of healing in their life that they need to walk through. The person who did the betrayal, they've got to seek some intensive help. It's not a once a week, I'm going to see a counselor. I'm biased, but I think you've got to get into a program that's intense. You got to look at everything in your life, and you got to work on you on a level that's you've never done before. That's what I've seen works. All right. Now, if couples, individuals, there's different ways of doing this. And the best way is to find out, what are my options? Because that's what we do here at the Center and Place of Hope. Just call our admissions department and go to the website, aplaceofhope.com, and just fill out the form and just begin to go, okay, today I'm just going to gather more information. It starts with seeing what the options are. Nobody's going to regret reaching out and getting help, but we're going to regret if we don't do anything. And that's where the pain will continue. And I know what it's like to have a relationship, in my case, a close friend, a colleague, and I know what betrayal is like. I know what it's like, and I know the shock, the pain, the trauma, the how to figure out forgiveness. It's a rocky, hard road that caused me to have to create changes in my life as well, so that I was not going to be filled with resentments, bitterness, vengefulness. That I was going to live a clean life and not allow that to affect my trust in other relationships. So this can be done. Rebuilding trust after betrayal. Gather more information. The Center, a Place of Hope.